This conference will now be recorded.
Can't wait for the newsletter. Check with Kimball. I think it's a 20 to 25-year project to put the power lines underground around Mirror Lake Drive. Just,
It's been on hold for 25 years.
but you might mention that in there. It's almost done.
Oh, and I did talk to Kimball about that, and there was no additional charge for Verizon or,
What's that?
there was no additional charge for Verizon or Spectrum,
For
so.
them to take them down.
The above ground poles.
Then we won't charge them for the
Are gone.
use of.
Oh, Well, because it's only, I think it was like only 3 or 4 poles, so they were fine. They didn't have an issue doing it.
It's still big.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, take their stuff out.
Okay.
You can also,
They're gonna be 25 years ago, they put.
you can also legitimately say that buried power is.
Do you have an
buried
agenda?
cable is,
For the workshop, I do. For the board meeting, there's only one time, so I did print one out for that.
So what's the width from?
I'm definitely going to be playing catch up.
I think it's pretty.
Yeah.
Or are you leaving after your talk?
Wow, when did they start this? Like besides the.
I mean.
No, I think the vote is first.
Well, you said when I.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I guess we'll start with pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That opens our emergency meeting with the express purpose of approving fireworks asked for by the governor. Who's Jason?
I know, I was gonna say, it's a shame to vote for this without him.
Do I hear a motion to approve? So moved. Second. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. And mayor votes aye as well. With a quorum, that does pass. And
So you understand, Orr's paying for it.
Yep.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, I got it.
Okay.
I heard all about it, trust me.
And that is the sole purpose of our emergency meeting, right? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye as well. Hey, that's the record for the longest shortest meeting. If I'd been quick, I could have shaved 20 seconds. Okay, now you're number one. You were number one. Your turn.
All right, well, thanks everybody for having us back, appreciate it. Another big step on this journey towards new websites for the town and the village. So Anita sent out a document yesterday, I believe.
Yeah, I think so,
Kinda had
whichever day you
summary.
send it to me.
I'm just gonna cover high points for about 10 minutes, but we're pretty much on track. We're a little behind. Our goal was to be able to surface how much these new website platforms would potentially cost about this time of the year, so we can make sure that everything could be covered by budgets. So we at least met that. And what we want to do today is go over with you what we learned high level, what we're recommending for next steps. Sound good? Okay. So we put out an RFEI back in February and March. Folks had 3 weeks to respond to it, send us a written proposal, and then we took the top ones and we did at least 1 to 2 hour demonstrations and discussions with vendors. So we had 11 respondents overall. They fall into like 3 buckets. The first bucket is companies who are creating a proprietary platform that's meant for government clients to host their websites. And their main clients are government customers, whether it's federal, state, or local. They don't do anybody else. The second bucket is those who really focus in on the business community. They have a proprietary platform as well, but they help businesses market their products and services. That was the second kind of group that responded. The third group that responded are those who are consultants who pull together best of breed or aggregate different technologies together, like WordPress, Drupal, LambStack for programming, etc. And then what they do is they turn the website, its full entirety, as well as the hosting and all the maintenance, over to their customer, and then the customer goes and runs with it. So of these 3 buckets, we're recommending that we don't work with those who aggregate technologies. turn the website and all the infrastructure back to us for us to manage and monitor. It's expensive and we don't really have the skill set to do it. So we're saying that's 7 of the 11 respondents. We're saying, let's not pursue those 7 anymore. We had 1 respondent in the marketing bucket. They had some really interesting things in their platform, but they serve a lot of other customers other than just government customers. And they were sort of on the expensive end, especially for the migration. So we're saying, let's not pursue that one anymore either. That was what Village of Saranac Lake uses, Jesse James Creative. The last bucket has 3 providers in it, and we're suggesting we continue to pursue those 3 providers. It's Civic Plus, Granicus, and Revise. Okay. They each have their own different strengths. And we capture that in the document as well. Of the 3, we're kind of leaning more towards Revise for a couple of reasons. 1, they have just a local government customer focus. 2, they seem to be more cost effective than Granicus and Civic Plus. 3, they have a really good disciplined approach to actually developing websites and then enhancing them over time. So as their client, us, gets better at doing what we need to do, and the community is more sophisticated on their needs, they help you, continue to evolve the website so it stays fresh. And they seemed also very flexible. Of all the folks that we heard from, they were the ones who were able to say yes to basically all the requirements without adding like different additional premium costs for things that we wanted to be able to do. There are a couple cons with Revise, and we've talked about them a lot. They worry me a little bit more than I think they worry Haley. First is Revise is a sole proprietorship model, meaning that it's a single owner, and that single owner funds the company. That just makes the company a little more open to having less money for investment to keep their other platforms modern and efficient going forward, but it also makes them an acquisition target as well. Second, they didn't have any service level agreements at all. So Civic Plus and Granicus had very strong service level agreements in case of interruption to the website or the content management system, the back end. And they actually gave timeframes on when both the back end and the front end would be back up. And they were willing to put guarantees against that. Revise does not have that. Also, Civic Plus and Granicus have very strong cybersecurity capabilities, especially when it comes to DDoS migration, that's distributed denial of service. A lot of that is happening very frequently for many organizations, including ransomware, not just large organizations as well. So if we do, continue to work with Revise in the next steps, we have a lot of questions for them, more specific on cybersecurity, intrusion detection and protection, firewalling, whitelisting, blacklisting, and then DDoS mitigation as well. So we're going to have them pass over some hurdles. Even though Lake Placid is a small area, we are globally known and we are globally visible. So if we're going to move to a new platform, we should do our due diligence when it comes to cybersecurity to make sure that whatever happens, we can address it. We'll never prevent. Cybersecurity is not necessarily about preventing. Hackers are smart. Things will happen. The most important thing to do is to know, or to have, is to know what you're going to do when what happens. So that's what we'll push Revise for. Granicus, I know that we've had some not good experience with them when they brought host compliance, and they have also increasing annual hosting costs. They increase 10% each year, but Granicus has got an amazing platform. It's run on Microsoft Azure, which is one of the best cloud infrastructures around in the world, and it's FedRAMP certified, which comes with a whole bunch of cybersecurity. So technically, I thought Granicus was the strongest, but having a bad experience with them has a very heavy weight as a con as well, and so do increasing hosting costs. Civic Plus is probably the most templated. They, like Granicus, have a very large scale. Each of them have around 4,500 customers, whereas Revise has around 1,800 customers. Civic Plus and Granicus both had service level agreements that were excellent. They both had defined response times, but Civic Plus was different than Granicus in that the backend was a little more kludgy. Wasn't quite as intuitive as Granicus backend for those who are updating content and managing it. Plus, they were much more templated and much more rigid. They also were more expensive when it came to the one-time migration, and if you wanted additional functionality, it seemed like they asked for a lot more premiums. So of the three, we're leaning towards Revise, but we want to go through the next process with all three, just to make sure we've got, a good solid recommendation.
Is it fair to say that Granicus is a huge company and just because we had problems with the staycation rental end of it, that the website would be a different division, it might be viable to work with?
Yes,
Okay.
and they also include a redesign of the 5th year of their contract too, for the other one. So, it's worth having a very frank conversation with them about what happened and get it out on the table. Sometimes if you find yourself in that kind of situation and you choose that vendor, they actually become more of an ally because they know they messed up and therefore they're going to do everything they can to never mess up again. But also their platform technically is really just really good platform and infrastructure. So I think it's worth continuing to pursue that.
Good.
So our thoughts are this. If anybody would like to, we thought we could ask for additional demonstrations if anybody wants to see both the back end and the front end. So that's an option. Whoever wants to join us, it would only last an hour. We would only do Revise, Granicus, and Civic Plus. If anybody wants to join us for all three, or maybe we just do one for Revise, whatever the group thinks is best. We also are booking discussions with the references, asking a lot of questions. We already spoke with Oswego about Revise, County of Oswego. We're also going to be speaking with Vail. They left Civic Plus and they're going to Granicus. So it'd be really interesting to hear their point of view on why they're doing that. Then the next step would be to review a recommendation, have a final side-by-side comparison. That would be step 3. And that would eventually probably go to the boards, right? In parallel, we think it's smart to build a list of conditions on what we want to have in the contract, like who owns the data, who's responsible for migrating the data if we leave, having a termination for convenience in the contract. There's probably a whole bunch of other list of conditions we want to make sure we gather from the town and village so that whoever's going to negotiate the contract has that in front of them. We also need to think about branding and voice guidelines. Whether it's one site or two site doesn't really matter. So we got to start gathering our digital assets, our pictures, our logos, thoughts around color, thoughts around voice, etc. All of that leads up to, the last thing we're doing is we're just continuing to refresh the current websites so that they flow more alike and the information's really clean, so it makes the migration easier. So those are kind of like the next steps between now and August. And hopefully we go to contract maybe sometime in September, so we can start the project in October, which means it's up the following March.
Question. Service contracts for Granicus and the other one.
Civic Plus.
Yes. Are they included in the annual fee? Are they
Yes.
included? Okay. So with the 10%
And they
increase.
both run on Amazon Web Services, virtual private clouds.
Okay. So with the 10% increase from Granicus, that's a 10% increase overall with the service as well. Do we have a ballpark from those 3 companies as to how much it is going to cost? Because our budget is going
Yes, we do.
into play.
Yes,
So
we
I
do.
need to know
I
how
forgot
much.
to put that in the document, but I'll resubmit the document. Revise was $13,000 one-time migration, both websites, $2,400 a month to host both websites. Civic Plus was around $5,000, $5,500K a year to host, $29K to migrate.
$30,000 each.
$29K to migrate. Granicus was anywhere from $5,000 to $6,500 to host, and about $21K to migrate. And I'll make sure I put it back in this document and resend that out. And thank you, I forgot that detail.
We're gonna split it 50/50.
But we had 15 Friday and week.
For one-time cost, which is the first year cost.
Okay.
Right. So that's
Who's going
good.
to manage it once is that Haley?
And me and
Yeah.
whoever does it on the
Whoever-
town
yeah.
side.
It's gonna be much more fun than now. A lot more work.
And once again, that was one of the leak requirements, who's going to manage this and will it be kept up?
There's different models. I mean, some towns have a centralized source. Some towns is decentralized, but there's brand and voice guidelines with, highly templated pages that can be used. That's something we need to discuss during the design phase of whomever we work with. What's the going forward operational model? And, what makes sense therefore to bake into the design.
I mean, I think it's probably going to be pretty centralized simply because of who we are and the number of our staff. I don't see Brad or Kimball or any of the managers jumping on to update their pages. I just do not see that happening.
There aren't enough hours in the day.
Right.
I do think, though, it's really smart. Oh, by the way, Granicus, Civic Plus, and Revise have great training options, both virtual, in person, and with resources. So that was really very strong. Granicus, unlike the other two, holds bi-weekly seminars for their end user base. So you can learn all kinds of new things just by getting onto a virtual training session for free for an hour every other week, which is pretty good. So it'd be smart.
Before we jump to that,
Yeah.
while I was writing, it sounded like I heard two different things. To migrate, which means move all our information once we have it in one place over, was how much?
Depends on the.
It depends. Revise was 19K, Granicus was about 21K.
Okay, so that's what it was.
I'm sorry, Civic Plus was 21K and Granicus was 29K, roughly.
So at the most 29,000 to move everything over. And then the maintenance was at 2,400 a month.
Revise is 2,400 a year,
A year.
sorry, to host and support.
Okay.
Granicus was anywhere from like 55 to 6,500 because they had the 10% increase each year. And Civic Plus is about 5,500.
Okay.
And
that
we
just
get a
made my
ton of
day.
it.
I should have said a month first, and I was like,
Per year, per
I
year,
didn't put that much in the budget.
per year, per
Okay.
year. And we were spending 2 right now. We get like not even half the functionality that these platforms have. So they have a lot more functionality than what we have right now, especially in the outreach area, simultaneous publishing to social media. There's a lot of different things.
Just put something out on the cost.
I will, I'm gonna update this document.
And how much do we have? 15?
15. So there's pros and cons to each one of them. They're all 3 of them would be really great choices for us. I don't think any of these 3 would be bad, right? They would all be good. It's just, we want to have a long-term relationship. We want to park this in a platform that's going to be around for a while. We want them to get to know us. We want to get to know them. We want really their help on design. We want to grow this as an engagement tool. That's what this is really all about. So
Can we also, before we leave the money end of it, I keep dragging us back there. We're talking somewhere between 2,400 and almost 6,000 for hosting and
customer
service.
support, yeah.
Mhm.
Can you
And
talk to
licensing
that a
of
little
the,
bit?
and licensing of the content management system in the back end.
How much is the licensing and the hosting actually? How much of that money goes towards that? And what's involved with the support?
So it varies, not all the vendors reveal that to us. How much of the annual fee goes towards the licensing, the hosting versus the customer support. So we can certainly ask.
But I mean, is it usually like, all the hosting that I've done with my stuff at the motel isn't very much. That's why I was just interested to hear.
It's probably your licensing. The vast majority of it's probably your licensing.
Because that's proprietary platform. The other thing too is Revise puts out a bona fide 4 updates a year. The others do it as needed. So there is investment in intellectual capital that all 3 are putting into their platforms, especially on the back end.
And what is done in support? Do you have problems loading something and you call and they give you?
Yes,
hand, or-
so it depends. Civic Plus and Granicus are very regimented when it comes to critical issues. That's where their service level guarantees come in. And they have what's called they have guarantees around how old is the data when we're going to be stored, how much time is it going to take. So they put guarantees against that. Revise does not, even for a level 1 problem. Everybody had 24/5 customer service, and they had also teams that you could talk to directly. Revise indicated that if you're having some issues, you're actually working with a developer. So they run the gamut. They're all a little bit different. Granicus and Civic Plus have to be a little bit more regimented because their customer base is more than twice the size of that for Revise. And they're all three of them are based in the US, and they use only US employees as well. They won't tell us how many customer support people they have, but my guess would be Revise and Granicus probably have twice as many as Revise. Civic Plus and Granicus probably have twice as many as Revise too, just because of the customer base. Granicus also has the main contract with the federal government for all emergency management. And they're running on FedRAMP certified infrastructure. So, I mean, the discipline that they're bringing to their IT, including cybersecurity, both Granicus and Civic Plus, my initial sense, it's another dimension above what Revise is doing.
Okay.
But that's why we want to do the second sections. It allows us to get under some of this a little bit more. And we would love other people to join us.
I definitely want to be a part of those, yeah. I appreciate all the legwork you've done to get us to this point.
We have a lot of information to push whoever's way wants to join us. We have a side-by-side in Excel with lots of columns and rows on the technical detail as well. So that's why we want to get under some of the covers, because if we do this, we want to do it once. We probably don't want to do it now, then in 3 years be back here again, right? We want to kind of keep working with the same vendor for a while.
For sure.
Migrate.
Yeah, that too.
It's safe to say also that right now our pages are more informational. They're not really any excitement to them.
Yeah, they're not dynamic.
And with this, we might be getting into some video clips and some pictures. of
Well, we
what's
can do
going
that
on.
here on this too. It's the look and feel is really different. The look and feel is really different. We can be more interactive on, at least on the town pages, if we had more licensing than we have. It's hard to be interactive on Digital Towpath. That's a village. But Digital Towpath has a really good content management system. It's just old, but it's a good back end. It's not bad.
I don't know if I can speak for the rest of everyone or the town, but right now, when majority of the people that are going to go on are people that are needing to either go to court or find it's building code or something like that.
Transactional, right?
And that's all in just information, but we're also possibly capturing people that go to our site that are coming to look at Lake Placid. And I think of your website, the minute you tune in, you've got moving scenes of the area and something that attracts visitors isn't such a bad idea, but
And we'll be able to do that on these new platforms more easily than we can do it on, or the information, including images, is much more static here.
okay, good.
But remember, the more sophisticated the outside gets, the more people you have running the inside. It's like a duck, very calm in the water and lots of feet underneath. So, I mean,
I mean,
there's
if
a
we're
tricky
going to
balance.
do, if we're going to do something like this, to spend this kind of money, it would seem to spend a little bit more and make this really special is the way to go.
And put resources against it. It will be important to put resources against it as well.
I apologize for coming in late. I like the idea of having it more dynamic. The only pitfall I see is that we inadvertently become competition for Roost.
We won't.
I think we
We
work in
won't. We worked
conjunction
through that with NJ already. That's all about audience and mission.
Okay.
And we worked through a lot of that with Main Street already. So I feel pretty comfortable that going forward, it's going to be okay. We've got different target audiences. We have different but complementary missions. And we can run the content, keeping those things in mind. Like with Main Street, we meet with them like once every other week. And it's been a great partnership.
So just between us and their websites, I'm like, I don't feel like I can navigate where I want to.
Well, that's a WordPress website.
Is it?
WordPress is underneath that one. Like WordPress is underneath the town one too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So just-
Yeah. So look at some of the websites in the document that for Revise and Granicus and Civic Plus. You'll see Civic Plus is the most templated. Revise is probably the least, Granicus is somewhere in between.
Good, okay.
Thank you, guys.
So is that an okay to go forward? Take the next steps?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And Anita, we'll include you, Leon, if
Definitely, yeah.
you do a lot of
Please.
stuff at school, if you want to join us.
Sure. I'll be more just.
It'd be good to have another set of eyes and ears.
So you have 3 interviews with the 3 different companies that you could sit in on, that'd be great.
Emily's been working with you guys too.
Emily too, we're gonna- and Jackie as well, so we would include them as well. If there's anybody else, Shane, from the town you'd like us to make sure we include,
With Kelly and with Emily, we're well covered.
okay.
Maybe the other town board members, they use computers from time to time.
Okay, so we'll do at least one other demo with Revise. Maybe we'll do Granicus as well, so we'll have a comparison point with how they speak to you about ask about the website versus what they did with post compliance. And then if we want to squeeze in the third Civic Plus, we'll try that. Sound okay?
Great, appreciate it.
Sure.
Thanks, both, thanks to both of you.
Okay, Jay, did you have anything else?
Do you want your budget last? My crew there.
What's that?
My-
You don't mind?
No, I don't mind.
Sure.
Should we go to Main Street?
Good. I was also thinking maybe Brent and Terry too.
Yeah, Brad has some plans
Yeah,
for
but
Ready
it's
Rock.
for them,
You
so
just
it's
try
the back end.
Yeah, we've talked about putting
Okay,
Ready Rock
thank you.
wall.
Have a good
Thank you
day.
very much.
The Ready Rock wall that we're looking at is the same wall that is out at Bob Road. Brown
Is
color.
everyone familiar with that?
Concrete driveway blocks.
It covered the green wall. First initial thing, it was 60,000 for material with all the labor and the other work that goes involved. It was like 149,000. We looked at it again and we decided that we might be able to push that wall straight down and add 3 parking spaces. We had,
Cut out the return wall.
you know where the return wall is now, take that out and go over to 3 parking spaces and have parking in the front and on the back, equal amount of parking spaces. 3 parking spaces and like Art said,
We should have six parking spaces, wouldn't we? Top and bottom?
This is actually.
well, we'd be adding some on top, but the bottom parking lot that we're working on right now, you have 3. And then the top would actually go because of where it drops off now. They're pricing that up right now. We gave them all the sizes, the height, and that's what we want to do. And their engineers, now that they've had to go ahead and start working on it, their engineers are going to tell me whether we can move that kickball coming down. They say we can
Steel
remove
beams.
the steel beams are already been told we can remove, but that was before we told them we were cutting the end off too. So they're gonna talk with us about that. If they say we have to keep that wall, then we'll go back to our original plan, that we're just gonna cover the wall up. But the wall will be covered up in this project. But the good thing is, the 60,000 for the material, we're probably gonna add, I don't know, maybe another 20,000 to the price. But so that's 80,000, but that can be reused. If we ever do something there, we can take this out and reuse it in another location.
And the beauty of this is that it is part of the Main Street construction for now, so it goes on a 30-year interest-free loan. And at some point, if we do a garage, we can use the product over.
So right now, the way we're looking at is that we're probably looking at another, say 200,000, I would say, between the 20,000 and then the increased. And there's going to be one other structure for drainage, because right now the drainage was going to come down in that area of the dirt. It's going to have to go out and around that because it'll be too deep of a dig to try to get underneath this wall.
Is that the 300T, whatever that was on the schedule? I wondered what that was.
Yes, it goes over. So we just want to make sure everybody's aware that that's where we're moving forward with it. I think everybody's on board with getting rid of the green wall no matter what. So,
Well, you can't have it.
Yeah.
Finished.
We'll probably have fireworks again. when it goes up, right?
the,
On my vote.
but that's, yes, and that's also something that they're requesting
Oh,
to do during this summer shutdown.
Oh, that's one thing.
How disruptive would that be to the upper park?
It shouldn't affect the upper parking till the day they go in, because you just have to fill in, and cut the other gap off. There will be some, but the upper parking will be available till right when the wall's being done.
Which is a good point, if you picked up on that. The Ready Rock terrace is up, but when it gets to the top of the green wall, it's there, that will be cut off. Which will actually give you a little bit more parking, and then any railing will go on top of the Ready Rock.
That's one thing that's not added in this price yet. We have not received a railing cost. We haven't decided whether West End Iron is getting this price. That's who did the railing by you. I think we should just be able to use, because you're gonna have high enough, just use the railing like we used at Bullwinkle's or around the lake. That's much cheaper, and I think it's fine. That's from APSCO fence.
So when they cut the cap off, there can't be any parking for a period of 2 days or so as they,
Fill in behind it.
yeah, and
Put a railing.
this is going to be double-sided cap on top, finished on both sides. So right now the concrete's all rounded, plus it's too high. So that needs to be removed.
And that's going to be somewhere right around the very end of July, or
Yeah.
even first day or two of August that'll be taking
On
place.
schedule.
I guess, do we fold right into what we're looking to do in July and August? And
We can, yeah, we
would you
can.
like me to throw it out, or would
Yeah,
you like to?
Go ahead.
Let's see how I do. So there'll be 3 projects starting at once. One will be brickwork on Saranac Avenue in the sidewalk, and the return coming up to the entrance to the High Peaks Resort, which will be the granite.
One at a time.
Yes, but that will be one work site. It'll be starting.
Because it was always going to be one sidewalk open.
That's right. Well, the idea there is that they're going to shift the road to the south, push it more towards High Peaks Resort, and you will lose the 7 worker permit parking spaces. But what you're picking up is them to be able to work in the sidewalk, have a sidewalk for pedestrians to go around, and 2 lanes of traffic that are not flagged, they're unimpeded.
It's the first 2 weeks of July, I believe, right?
It actually goes further than that, doesn't it, or not? Do you remember the timeline on that?
No, I don't have.
I didn't bring mine
I mean,
either.
they're going to, as soon as the curbing's in next week, they're going to start that job.
Right, but I think it goes further than that. We've got a timeline, but also at the same time that that's happening, they'll be in the lower NBT lot digging what they call practice B, which is the bioretention. And that's roughly 2.5 weeks. And that will take up just the lower part of it.
I believe
2.5, 3.
retention is 3 weeks, 15 days.
And that takes up just the lower portion. It does not affect the upper. And the spot off to the right of that dirt now will stay there for them to bring dump trucks in, their products in and out. And once again, that will not impede Main Street. There will be no flagging, there will be nothing in the street.
Just, we're going to lose 20 parking spots for 3 weeks.
Correct. Okay, and keep adding those up. So we're up to 37 now. Also, at the end of the bioretention being done in practice B, then they do the Ready Rock, and then they're done. At the same time, they'll be down in the post office parking lot. And the way I have it described is they need to do a trench line, which is bringing the surface water to where the bioretention will be at the bottom of Olympic Drive. And they're going to work in thirds. So, and this work is supposed to go very quickly. And they'll be doing
Trench, we're talking about.
1/3, and then when they get to the last third, that's where they're putting in the bioretention. So there's 150 parking spaces in the post office parking lot. And if they're working on 1/3, they're
We
affecting,
already lost 20 or so because of.
getting ahead of me. So we're affecting 1/3, which is 50 spaces, but we're not taking up the entire parking lot at that point, are we? So it's no more than 50. And then the second, that was 3 to 5 days, 4 days, I think, to do section at a time. The trench line, each third goes about 3 to 4 days, something like that.
Should be way faster than that, but yeah, that's what they're.
Okay, so then they finish the first, and then they move to the middle, and then,
Now, pause you, like, in that process, are they doing it much like they're doing on the street? They dig it up, fill it, and then put
Yes.
the top on it?
yes, and at the very end of it, they're going to be blacktopping it. If I remember, us giving a shim.
Yeah, they'll fill the trench line in at the very end.
So you've got 3 to 6 days to get the trench line down to the south end, at which point they're probably going to take up the whole south end, the 50 parking places, and they're going to put in practice C, which is the bioretention. And they're going to be connecting up that trench line that will be bringing the water, surface water or drainage water over. And then at the very end of that, there's one day where they will be doing, or 4 days, we're doing a trench line across the bottom of Olympic Drive. And right now, all the water that comes down there now just goes into the street and goes heads down. Now there's going to be grates that will catch that water and take it into the bioretention. And the grates will go all the way across, but they'll be bike friendly.
Okay. Smaller.
It's
So
all in July.
that's right. So
It's
the,
not our busiest one, but.
and then what is it? Was it August 10th roughly? They'll go into One Main Street Park and do about 5 days worth of work. And then basically that will be it. So the very worst that we have is when they get down to the third section of the post office parking lot, they'll be taking up 50 spots. You're losing 10 to the construction trailers, you're up to 60. You'll be losing 20 spots in the NBT lot, you now lost 80. And you have the 7 spots on the side of Saranac Avenue that you're going to lose, you're up to 87. Our intention is to have a dedicated shuttle, and we're still working out the details on that. I have talked to the museum, they're allowing us to use their property. Brad's in the process of making sure that the surface down there on the railroad ties
There's
out.
at least in their parking lot, there's at least a spots for 100 that's already graded. If you pull the fence,
More.
you wouldn't be able to use all the parking that they have down there once the fence is removed. It's
So
huge.
the good news is they're willing to do that. The county is trying to do their best to work with us. We're also trying to supplement that with a private company to pick up all the hours. So we're back to, we did not disrupt traffic flow on Main Street. We will not have evasive construction that's going to be noisy and bother people. And we're replacing the parking that we're taking out. And the end goal of all this is if everything goes according to plan, they don't run into something horrible, they don't run into snow and rain, this project will be done in 2 years instead of 3. So that's the big end goal of all this.
I know we've talked about it before, but the Lucy property where they store the snow, that's off limits.
You're talking about on West Valley, that's already under contract with the people doing the arena and speed skating. So that's not an option.
I recall that was the case. but
Yeah,
it wasn't.
also he's using a portion of it for that project that he has going.
And if you think of this in the big scheme of things, 3 years ago, we did the slip lining of the sewer, that's done. Within 2 weeks, the water line and the laterals will be done, correct? And everything will be charged, and that will be where the people are getting the water. And if they're allowed to put in these bioretentions, which is where the surface water is going to go, that means when they start in September, that's what they start working on. And if not, they would have had to be delayed while they did the bioretention because they can't put the surface water lines in without a place for it to go. Every time it rains, it would just end up filling their dig site. So there is a lot of good momentum going right now. This will move the project along. We have hopefully got a plan to take care of the people that are displaced parking. And we're hoping it's actually better, so you don't have to maybe park in the big parking lot or the MBT and then go up to the end of Main Street. We're looking at the shuttle stopping in 3 different points on Main Street. So you actually might park and get driven to your.
And you're hoping to get one of the counties.
We're hoping, yeah, we're looking at maybe a 25 to 30 passenger bus that would just keep making that loop every 15 or 20 minutes. And we'll hope to have the Patrick Wells there that shows where it is. And because it's not part of the regular trolley route, which is subject to pickups at Greenwood or the Commons, it should stay on schedule.
Turn around.
That's a good question. Where would we turn around?
I was thinking maybe we could almost just go up and go down Hillcrest and go right back down.
Okay.
Just do a loop.
Right.
I would recommend maybe that we have an inexpensive TV like that, and we can have one maybe under glass somewhere at the museum, so they can
We should be able
actually
to
have it
cover it.
just run constantly, so people don't have to use their phone per se. When they're there, they can see when it comes.
It should be, you should be able to post it. 5:15, 5, it
Well,
should stay.
in
right on
theory.
schedule. But there's nothing to throw it off.
In theory.
But I mean, that's the
Yeah.
problem with the other trolley, was that everyone would call for a special pickup, threw it off schedule.
I think it would,
You could turn
from my
around at the end of
perspective,
Main Street too.
that
That would be the best thing. You could turn around.
it's a minor, very minor investment in our.
Is it? We could look into it.
No,
Look
they-
into that and tell us
Yeah.
how expensive it would be.
Yeah, and if
Yeah.
we have a desktop that would just run and plug into the TV and it could be.
Just see how much that would cost.
Put program, Patrick's
Yeah,
program,
just have the, and it just
set
have
it there and
See how much that would cost.
But yeah, that's a good point. We probably should try to find a place where to turn around. Go right down.
People going back down to the train station.
Yeah, well, I suppose that,
First thing is seeing if we can get trolleys. That's our main thing. Once we can change the route any way we want, and once we know we have trolley or
we pay
bus.
for it with Main Street Reserve money.
Well, Jerry runs his flatbed.
That's what I said.
Get out.
The county's not using their hiking shuttles this summer.
Well,
are they or aren't they? And with the other question that someone asked me is, what about Ore? Do they have transportation?
Yeah, that's what I mean. They have buses that,
Yeah.
they're, but then again, you have to get drivers.
It's all about the drivers, but so we got a school bus driver, hopefully.
Because if we're being proactive, it's not only the guests that are coming to Lake Placid that need a place to park, but right now, you have all the workmen from the skating oval inside the arena, all of the Orem employees, the Roost employees, and they're all parking in that big parking lot, and it hasn't been a problem in June because we're not that busy, but all of a sudden, if there's that
It is right
parking.
now. It is right now. There are people pulling.
Yes. it's
Now
starting to
everybody
get
that's
busy.
coming in there to go to Main Street is driving through the parking lot and driving out.
Over here, the Lucy property, can I do something about that parking?
Well, that's,
You said that, so you said no go.
but that's also under contract with Cabricki, that's their staging.
Everything is- So much land there.
The lower MBT lots, all the most.
He said,
Yeah.
he doesn't want West Valley, even that property. he didn't-
Well, the whole hope here is that we can get buy-in from the workers. And we've talked about starting this at 6:30 in the morning, and then maybe running it until 6 at night. We're not trying to catch everybody, we're just trying to catch mostly the workers and the construction workers.
I apologize. Eric, did we end up changing the hours to, on the meters, or we were waiting? for
That's gotta be, there's gotta be a whole public.
a public hearing?
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
Janet
So
thing.
we're not gonna move forward, because that would alleviate some of the issues.
I think we passed along our findings to Janet, so.
Okay.
At some point here, maybe by the next board meeting, we should have recommendations of what we want, because it will then take us to the next board meeting, but at least then we'll have. Is she here?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Who's JK?
So.
Me, Jackie.
Oh, hi, Jackie.
I don't know.
There's two Jackies.
There's two Jacks.
Oh, Jackie Kelly.
Oh, no, it's just, Jackie, you're just up there twice.
Oh, I am?
Yeah.
Well, it's only one.
Well,
I can check.
but are there drivers?
I don't know for a fact.
Because a lot of people we talk to have buses, but they don't have people to run them. But
Unless-
if you could check on that, that'd be.
Unless you can come up with 15 passenger or less buses, then we don't need CDL or passenger endorsement.
Well, what we're thinking is by the time we get to July, we won't be having all of our village crews assisting on Main Street, and we might be able to supplement this with some of our people driving, as long as they're 15 passenger or less.
Would that be would that violate any of the contract or the scope of work within the contract?
I mean, we're trying.
Bad talking that.
Yes.
All I know is, Jim, for 12 years, we've kind of like.
I like his
Out of their, range, and all of a sudden there's
So
I
any
know a
question
lot
you
of
have
them
to ask?
sit in an air-conditioned bus all day and just drive back and forth.
Yeah, you can't get any easier.
So the bottom line is there is very big incentive to keep working a little bit in July and August if we can not have it be a major impact. And the biggest impact is parking, and we still have that. Let's say we did nothing, we did no work on Main Street, we did nothing. We still have the problem of those people taking up all our parking. And it's a public parking lot. And it's a public parking lot, you can't tell.
Marcy people and the Mike Crab people.
Well, I thought and then we'd have to change the amounts, correct? And that's
That
the
we can
public
do.
hearing.
We did talk about that,
We
but we
did.
didn't talk about wanting to do it. Like, we could go to $2 an hour and charge however much, just to discourage these workers from being there.
The other thing would be to charge or to change what a parking ticket charges from $25. Because a lot of
That's
these
the
people,
50 to
something like that, because they say, well,
That had to be a public hearing.
Right, but we
oh, I
can
didn't think
still,
we had to do a public hearing for
No,
that one. I thought it was just to change the times.
The times, yeah, the times.
I think we did for the fines too.
Did we?
I'm not positive.
No, we put a clause in there.
But
No,
not
yeah,
fines.
all we have to do is.
Yes, she put there was a clause written in the last time we did the fines
So you
that
did-
said that the board itself can make the decision. The only thing we had to go to public hearing for and change the law was if we were gonna change the time of when we charge for parking.
If you could make a note on that, if that's the low hanging fruit, let's get that done. Maybe we can do that actually at our next board meeting.
Okay.
And then we can also try to set an agenda for the next board meeting where we do a public hearing. And maybe we can have, well, of course, we already had to have from Janet, didn't we?
You mentioned, well, utilizing the school parking lot.
I talked to them about that. They said a lot of children didn't do well with COVID, learning at home. There will be a lot of summer school. They kind of talked about mostly needing a lot of that. But we're still trying to see if they have parking.
And you politely asked those who are,
I've asked the school board president.
I mean, I
superintendent.
politely asked those who are doing construction to.
I haven't mentioned that to anybody yet. Gotta have a place we know we can
Place
send.
where we go.
What's that?
If we have this shuttle, we're gonna.
If we have a place to go, we'll talk to
We're
them.
gonna start giving tickets. Wow.
Well, I think we will need to start that process now.
Right, but until we know we've got a shuttle or a parking
As
lot.
soon as we know about the
On the
shuttle, that's where we.
You know, I guess parking control revenue, parking control revenue is parking control revenue. As we're moving towards those ambitious plans for Main Street, we really do need to have those spots ready for those guys to visit.
Yeah. Oh, that's what this is all about.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
need to have a place to come.
I mean, we've been thinking about this for 2 months now.
Yeah, I know, I just-
Saw the problem coming.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you. It's just I guess it's more of just transitioning out of the prior administration where there's a lot of conversation, but the action part didn't.
Like I said, it's been on our radar. I've been seeing that this is a problem and we're here, we're there. This is, can you think of another solution?
No, I'm just, the
I can't
solution we have,
think of
I
that.
think just, we have to have action items and stuff.
Oh, for the last 10 days, we've been in active conversations with the county and they're doing their best. Between Doreen Abrams and Jim Dugan,
Because
and now maybe they can help us a little bit.
what you're proposing, and I feel like the whole board is, the board unanimously supports, but that having that other component, freeing up that, the municipal lot when we can, and having that trolley is really.
What you're saying,
It's
the
contingent
component
on
of the
those
trolley is what's key. If we can't do that, then although, as I said, if we do nothing, we're not gonna have the big parking lot. It's going to be dominated by the Ordo employees.
But we can still solve that.
Well, but
Independent,
they'll pay and they will still be there. It won't solve the problem.
we can charge more for construction. You know.
Well, they're just paying the meter rate.
Or the payment ticket.
Yeah.
The meter rate of the
Yeah.
ticket.
But we had conversation today and there's really not a whole lot of tickets being written, at least not on the weekend.
People are
In
paying.
that lot, people are paying. And then during the week, it's so hard to differentiate who's with construction, who works here, who works there, that, they're, and my dad only works 2 days a week, so.
Yeah.
And we have no other parking enforcement at this time. So we,
We're good. I mean, that's all we're doing. What we're doing.
Yeah, we're
Everything can be done is being done.
White trash.
That's the next step, once we can.
Shuttle them from training center. Take care of that.
oh yeah, they have buses.
Yeah, no, that's, they're not running.
No.
I don't see why they can't send somebody to shuttle or people that
The
are.
training, the training center does not have buses, they have vans.
Yeah,
And-
that's all. they need to get
And
people.
Orta does not have any buses that are, let's say, roadworthy due to insurance. I don't want to say we're roadworthy. Let's just say that due to insurance premiums, we can only drive them on property.
Understood.
But roadworthy is another terminology.
Don't they have one for Whiteface?
We lease them and they go back in April.
Oh, they go back.
Yeah.
Where do you lease them from?
Some company out of Ohio.
It's just around the corner.
And then you just hire a driver to drive that that wouldn't be a bad idea though, just to,
Just getting the person to, you're gonna hire is a hard, seems like everyone's got the sticking point.
Other than the bus drivers.
The bus drivers are,
oh, yeah.
That's the only thing.
And we did pursue the avenue of the school, but the school will only drive their school buses.
Well, here's a thought. Who drives your bus or who drives the Orta bus in the winter? Do they want a summer job?
It's possible because they all have CDL license and they're just minus 600 hour employees. So what's wrong with the school? I mean, Can-Am isn't here this summer, so they've got all the buses. I mean, the school can't do it?
They have too many kids that are going to summer school.
Oh,
But-
okay.
She's talking about buses, we're talking about their parking lot.
Yeah, oh.
I'm talking about buses.
You know, all avenues we're looking at. Any other questions? Did I miss anything, Brad?
No, other than, I should have an answer from a couple of these transportation people. This one sounds like they'll shoot me an email soon telling me how much it would be for 2 months with 30 passengers.
Well, and when we mentioned that we're only working July and 1 week into August. And I think we look at the success or the lack of success of these buses and could very much consider running them, continuing them. Because at some point down the road, we're either going to be able to build a garage or we aren't. And if we aren't going to be able to financially, this is the next best alternative is to bus people during the busy time. And this is a perfect chance to see if it's going to work or if it isn't.
Mhm.
And if it is, it's off the table.
And also to consider, you're going to need an accessible bus. If,
Right.
Mhm.
so, yeah, that's, yeah.
Although you have got your accessible handicap spots in the parking lots they could use.
If they're not
The bus has to be accessible to transport somebody
in a wheelchair.
Main Street, in the accessible parking places.
if there is one.
Oh, well, definitely.
Well, yeah, I think you almost have to have the trolley or the bus
Accessible.
Yeah.
Paid for ADA compliance.
I think it would be mandated.
And pretty sure all of these, the ones that I've looked at, all look like they are.
It just make it so that we go every 20 minutes instead of every 15, so we ensure we can stay on schedule, because that is something we're going to be
Mhm.
Swiss timing here.
Yeah, I think that's.
Well, I think if we do come up with this, say one bus out of a private, I think the trolley needs to add this to their stop also.
Oh, yes. But as we've seen in the past,
But that might get you out of the handicap also, because the trolley is, and the buses are. So you might have to wait for that one to pick you up if you're handicapped, if the other one isn't.
details to be
Then you have that
Yeah.
one working in, but if you happen to at least have the trolley stopping there so that that's an alternative that you have, it's not gonna be as fast as the other one, but it might be able to stop in between.
Does anyone have any clue as to how many people start showing up in that big parking lot early? I mean, how many? Is it like 40, 50?
But when I get there at 6:30, it's starting to fill up.
But I guess the question is, will a trolley that can hold 20 or 30 people be enough to keep up with that demand first thing in the morning?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. And even if we had to get them to split so that a certain group came at one time and 10,
There's
15
not
minutes.
much traffic at that time of day, they won't be held up in traffic.
Yeah, I mean, basically a lot of that with that time of the day, you can turn right around and the big lot, go right straight back.
True, don't have to go to the end of Main Street. True,
Because that's gonna be empty, you're not taking anybody up. You go into the lot, you drop them off if they're all going there, or you just drop them right off at order.
you're looking at a 10-minute turnaround.
Yeah, or less.
Yeah, I like to go longer so that if something happens, we're not off schedule, but yeah. Because I think that's key, what Jason was mentioning. As long as this thing stays on schedule, it's reliable, and people trust it, they'll use it. The minute it doesn't,
Mhm.
they won't.
So the minute they use it, they won't, if they don't trust it, they won't use it, and then the aggravation.
But that might be the option you have also is not run it all the way up Main Street. Is run it to the main lot, turn around and go back.
Depending on the certain times of the days, yeah, I mean, let's look into all of that.
Mhm.
Sure.
I mean, when you're transporting workers, like you said, that there's no sense of running all the way up. to 6.
Well, but we also have the 7 spots we're displacing at the end of Main Street, and we all know that that's the worst place we have for parking.
But that's only till the bricks in, then they'll have 10. Todd's got it laid out for 10 spots after the bricks in.
So we're gonna pick
when's
up
that?
We're gonna pick up 3 on that hill.
If the whole week.
What he plans on doing is, he said that he can pick you up 3 spots for the summer while this is work's going on in the lots by keeping the parking over on that side of the road and keeping the lanes over here.
So where the pedestrian sidewalk was would become parking.
Correct.
That sounds like an interesting alternative.
He said that he could pick you up 3 spots by doing that. That's what he laid out.
Interesting. How does that work when you funnel into the church where you, it's narrow, but you still parking up that far?
Well, you're gonna be running those 2 lanes. That 10 foot that you're gonna be working in, he said he could give you 10 spots over there after he's done.
Might be an interesting permanent solution. Huh?
But
Okay,
that's what he says that he has it laid out like that. Great, he was talking about the other day.
Future negotiation, let's prove a concept.
This might be an aside, but I know at one point we had a conversation about having the upper lot at MBT exit via Marcy Road. Are we
It
still?
doesn't, it's been doing it for,
It's been doing, because I saw, but I thought it was only on weekends or something. It's
No.
been 24.
it's been, yeah, we
So
opened
this
it
week-
up.
It's on Durand.
Yeah.
If it's hot.
There's a nice sign there now too. I don't know who did the nice sign.
You can come and
Is
go.
that good enough? I saw that street meeting. sign.
Says it, the spray
Yeah,
paint.
I was like, this is Detroit? I'm like, whatever.
You can come and go through either exit, either spot,
Okay.
Marcy Road or Main Street.
Yeah, but there's a new sign.
I used to,
And I think this brings in a bigger conversation that we'll have to have over the next month or so. What do we want to do with Hillcrest after we start up in September? Because all the detour will be coming down. Do we want Hillcrest to be 2-way traffic or 1-way
Next fall. we'll talk
in
about it.
September?
No, that's
We don't need a
all-
decision today, but everyone should be thinking about it.
It's going to open up to 2 ways in July 1st, and then do we go back to 1 way or keep it 2 ways?
And if we do go to 2 ways, one of the complaints, one of the original reasons it was 1 way is you would have to do away probably with the parking on the side so that there was room for people to drive and people to walk. And then maybe that's where this trolley or shuttle service continues and keeps that going. But all things to think about. I do see a benefit if Hillcrest were 2 ways, that there are times when you're just at this end of the village and you're going up Main Street, and to turn around and go back and avoid it all, you don't. You go up through Main Street. It's probably 30-40% cars that don't need to be on Main Street that are being part of detours, and
Are you saying instead of going up Hillcrest or going up?
you would be able to go
down,
up Hillcrest.
People don't. I usually go down Cummings Road and go west.
Cummings Road is going to become 1 way. As soon as the
Dumping
pool
on
lets
Main
out.
Street.
It is that direction, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, there's something until they're done with the project.
Everyone has been so good on Main Street and the locals, very, very few complaints, and all the ones are legitimate. Let's just hope everyone can keep their sanity while we finish this project up.
There's a lot of, I think what mitigated is a lot of communication. And I was mentioning, you said that maybe Jason might be out, but between Jason and my father, they're pretty good about communicating to shop owners what's going on, and to miss out on that, I think it's critical too, to kind of have not only, people be available, Brad be available, or, Tracy or whatever, but having, people like Marty, Jason, just as they're enforcing, they're also stopping by business owners saying, hey, by this time, this is gonna happen. And it's more personal, I guess. And it's been appreciated from what I understand. So keeping that up would probably.
But we are down to Bucky now for the next month, so
Can are we going to hire someone?
we're looking. Would you like a job?
No,
For the
I
summer?
have one.
Well,
I'm gonna be working all of August.
Yeah, he's working on somebody right now.
What's that?
He's working on someone right now to see if he can get him
Your
to
dad?
come in.
Bill
Ex
probably
county
talking
sheriff.
to you more if we're gonna go to late. What's to have the over.
Well, and I have spoken with Chief Moore, and there are times when the police can just service meter people also, so.
When does Jason usually come in? 'Cause I feel like any time before 10 o'clock, would probably not be beneficial if we're not metering people till 10.
Well, that's why I say,
10
by
to
throwing the
6,
police department in, they're there 12, 24 hours a day, and anytime there's meter enforcement to be done, and they start writing sporadic tickets, we'll keep the people in line, not knowing when they're going to be there and when they're not. That's.
Yeah, we just want to be consistent with.
I think currently both of them work 9 to 5. They come in an hour early that way. Well, now they can. We got everyone trained today. 2 people from the highway, thank you, Brad, and my dad on how to service the meters and empty them, because Jason was the only one who knew, and he's out for a month. So they can come in an hour before parking starts on Main Street, empty the meters out, change the paper, do whatever they have to. I know when Marty was here, Marty used to work 9 to 5, I think it was, and Jason worked 10 to 6. So.
Any other questions? I didn't even see you come in. You're good.
Snuck in.
I was just looking up to see if you were there.
There's one thing, Art,
Oh, sorry.
they just found out they hit the telephone line, IP, so they're down, their credit card machines are down.
There goes everyone being very understanding.
And just.
I shouldn't have said a word, should I?
I don't know where they hit it.
Who hit it?
Ricky must have had.
Telephone or internet?
They said telephone.
Well, if it's a DSL
They
line,
said that the telephone people won't be here till tomorrow morning.
Get your square readers
Now,
out.
they haven't called me. She hasn't called me yet, so.
break out the hand one.
Yeah, they just
Knuckle
hit
bust.
the hole, they hit the line, the actual line.
They're buried. Hit it someplace.
I'm not usually with lines.
Well, and that does bring us back to what we said before, Main Street's water line and infrastructure underneath the pavement. We knew it was 100 years old. We knew very little about where it was, shut-offs. And we got in there and we found it is 10 times worse than we thought it was.
So
So
100 years of just.
all of this really needed to be done.
Mhm.
I mean, I've even seen pictures of the water line starting to close in because of the debris buildup in them.
Well, we have a picture today of Hayes Street. The 6-inch line is that big, and I'm not exaggerating, it's that big.
Not 6 inch.
You know, the corrosion that just, like your arteries clogging, pipes are closing down. So there's never a good time for construction, but we've gotten away
That is
with
no
murder
excuse.
for a long time. We're very lucky this is being done. Anything else? Any more?
No,
good
that's
news?
just, they text me just to tell me that. Yeah, that's great.
Damage report?
That's where you're heading? You want me to start right from the start?
Give us the overview. Quick
All right.
overview.
So we discovered a leaking transformer. It's another one. Mark went up, we reported it, then Mark Pratt went up, he thought he got all the contaminated soil. Sent a sample and it came back 1,200 parts per million, the DC said you got excavated. So it was kind of, I don't know how this part of Fawn Ridge, it was up in Fawn Ridge, how this part of Fawn Ridge didn't get incorporated into the new part of Fawn Ridge, but it wasn't. So there was one other customer affected. We bought a generator for this purpose and we had a lift station to pick up and we had a customer to pick up.
We don't have to generate.
Yes,
Yeah, we do.
yeah. But unfortunately, Mark decided to use the generator, our generator on the lift station and Orta's on the customer.
Orta's generator?
Yes.
Okay.
That we borrowed. Personally, I would have done it the other way around. But
Yeah.
that happened. He did everything right. He checked the volt. Like when we replace the transformer, we do not give the customer voltage until it's confirmed to be correct. We pulled their meter, we hit their disconnect. He did all that. It read 120, 240, everything was right. Well, when the load got applied, it had 240 from base to ground. And it was because he put the neutral under the wrong terminal. But unfortunately, the test procedure did not show that. He screwed up, he missed, he screwed up, he owns it.
What happened?
So there was stuff was
So we-
damaged?
Yeah.
Somebody,
Appliances don't like to, they're
Appliance.
supposed to get 120 volts, do not like
So
240.
what was damaged?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna get.
refrigerator, washing machine.
No.
Range.
The range, but it wasn't a normal range.
Of course not.
It was the gas top, electric bottom, $5,000 range.
Oh,
And we had to replace their
Dual
their
door.
garage door too, I thought,
Yes. So,
and a washing machine too.
The total cost.
probably $7,000.
Oh, is that insurance claim?
Well, that's been back and forth, and I'd like to give the homeowner some definitive procedure on how to proceed.
Well, Janet keeps asking if our insurance covers replacement costs. It's liability coverage, it's not homeowner's insurance. Our liability will cover all of it. It has nothing to do with replacement costs. It is not a homeowner's claim on our insurance. So it is a straight up liability claim. So whatever,
On us,
the
we
yeah,
own the problems. we pay
yeah.
for
So
it.
whatever the liability is for the problem, that's what our insurance is gonna cover. Has nothing to
Who
do
calls the
with,
adjuster and tells them, we want to do a claim, you want me to do it, you do it?
I can do it. I have the email with this.
In order to order their appliances, Wilson's needed a down payment. I went there yesterday with a credit card, said, put $4,000 and get them come. So,
So the equipment's ordered.
yeah, because they've already been a week without the stove. So thank God the guy doesn't mind grilling.
it's been a good.
I'd be more concerned about a week without a washing machine, man.
Yeah.
Begging
That'd be
you to put
terrible.
a rock in the river.
So fortunately, no one got hurt. It was
Yeah.
machinery that got over
Yes.
voltage, so that's the good news.
So this is a village credit card or yours?
Village.
Because I'm like, I know you're the type of guy who would just do that on your own credit card. I'm like, I hope you didn't do that.
How about the Otis switchgear update?
Well, up at the arena, there's 2 feeders that feed the arena. There's 2 keys that hang on my back wall. They're the interlock key for the switchgear and the barrel lock key. Story I got was when they did the substation expansion sub 3 in 1990, Bernie Belargin went up, they got it to turn the primary feed into sub 3 instead of sub 1.
Substations
Somehow.
at the fire, at the plant, right?
Yeah. Not sure how it happened, and no one knows how the switchgear works. And to me, to have an arena full of people and no one knows how the switchgear works.
Sounds like, sorry, Jackie.
Well, and Orta would like to pay us to
She's secretly flipping you off the camera right now.
to modernize the switchgear. What they don't want to do apparently is get Gilbane involved and their engineers involved. They think that if we hire PLM and they pay us, it can be done for a third of the price as everyone getting their.
But then we have a liability if something goes wrong.
Yep.
Well, but we're the ones that operate the switchgear, so they don't have anyone there to
I
qualify.
take ownership of the switchgear?
Well, I think we'd have to start with a memo of understanding that it's Orta switchgear. We help you to operate. There's no other facility in the village that has this type of setup where you have high voltage going into the building.
Okay.
It's a Janet question.
Yeah.
How do we proceed for that?
I mean, how come Jim Bondell had keys for it, if it's not village related,
So between you and Janet, hopefully you
Yeah.
can give us a recommendation.
So just call.
No, I mean, I can see the village doing the work and all that, but then giving the responsibility to order. after the fact.
But they don't.
Kind of like the opposite of what you do with.
Well, I mean, it was set up so we could feed into it with one feeder and out on another.
Is it in our system, this contributed plant, or no?
What's that?
Is it in our system, this
I have
contributed?
not.
I'll have to look back.
As far as I was always concerned, it ended at the riser. Piece was there, but
This would have been in 78, 79.
yeah, for us to just get it done type deal.
We were just even puffing. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, like they have an automatic transfer scheme there where they lose one feeder, it should switch to the other, but it hasn't even been turned on. I was like, this is just about as good as a generator, but
Obviously, with all the work they're doing in the new plant, they're going to want something reliable and probably some redundancy. So
another thing is it's set up so you operate the switchgear standing in front of it. Back in 1978, there were no arc flash regulations, and now
Is there enough space to even do it?
well, no, what you do is you put a remote set of controls in where you're not standing in the blast zone when you operate it.
Are you saying there's gonna
We
be?
bought those, right?
No.
Obviously.
Oh,
has to be-
did we buy something?
Be one thing.
So that's the call underground cables, you're not
Oh,
sure if they're.
okay.
So are you saying that with a new installation is going to be?
It would just be modernization of controls.
Well, then that's, you are required to wear a seatbelt back to somebody.
Yeah. You're on the back of trucks.
Okay, great. Last but not least,
Oh, boy.
anything else, Dad, before we go into the budget?
They, Time Warner said they should be done by the end of the week on their Lake Drive. The Verizon engineer's back from vacation, and he'll be looking at the 4 poles they attached to, which we're not sure why they attached to.
And are we still looking to see if we can charge them for the use of the conduit?
No.
I remember we had a
Well, that
conversation about that.
So far, we don't have that. They're also.
We don't have it as of yet. Like
they're
I
not
said, there's
charging
a
us.
couple of municipalities that do.
And
We're
for the
not,
future, long term.
yes.
Takes more research.
Yeah,
And they're not charging us to take them off. the poles. That was a question last
Well,
week.
most of the work was done 20 years ago.
right.
Why
Why did-
they were allowed to attach these 4 poles? I'm not sure.
I hope there's an option now for them. To get them off.
They act, I kind of told them that you should have never attached. Why you did, I don't know. So you have to come off is what I'm doing.
Okay, good.
Great. Anything else?
No.
Are we, as far as electric, are we advertising for a position? For the ground?
I wanted to just concentrate on getting the foreman position
Foreman position.
ironed out with no
Okay.
distractions and then move on to the,
Is today the end of the application period?
yes.
So that's the position.
What do you need for that?
Need you and Jason to do an interview on Thursday with me.
Sparky?
Yeah.
And then after that, you're looking you're recommending budgeting 1 or 2.
You know, me, I take 3, but. No, we got the word for him. I'll take whatever. If it's 1, it's 1. We'll do what we can do.
What was the thought process? Because just a refresh on that. What was the board's perspective on that?
You guys can work that
Oh,
out.
no.
Okay. All right, we'll check. We don't have to-
Every time we retire, maybe we want to get somebody trained, groundsman up the ladder.
The cars, the RAV4s you're getting, the electric parking, are they the hybrid or the prime?
Fine.
Okay.
It was the best thing I could find.
Yep, so they're the ones that are 40 miles of electric
Yes.
and then they go to gas, average of
I
105.
held out hoping Ford would get out there fast and get that 150.
It's next year, right?
But I think in 2 days, I think 45,000 people reserved one. That's a year out, so.
I always wanted to try, but I was like, it's just something, I'm too cheap, I didn't want to
I'm
spend.
saying, don't get 200 miles.
I didn't want to go $5, 5 miles.
The
an hour.
RAV4, the prime that you're getting,
Just a teacher.
it says it goes 40 miles. If you're driving around here in the mountains, how much will that diminish that?
I think it might add to it.
Okay.
I don't know.
Does the
Visually,
the braking add to the charge?
Yeah, because when we had the escapes, the mileage was up around 40 in the village. You took it out on the highway, it was 23 or something. Once the battery was depleted, it was.
and I noticed the horsepower goes from 203 to 220 for the hybrid, and then the prime goes up to 304, 308.
We tested it with Mike Corselli, it's a rocket.
Are they electric motors in each tire? or
You're
is that
saying
what
when you
happens?
test drove it safe?
I think there's 1 per axle.
Okay, so that's where the extra horsepower comes from, because you probably have the exact same engine that the regular and the prime have, or the hybrid have, but you pick up the horsepower by electric motors in the axles. Okay, I'm just curious. I tried to research that the other day, and it's very hard to find online.
It was the best plug-in hybrid I could find.
No, it's good job.
I mean,
So Kimball, the first 2 weeks of July, the trench from the Thunderbird down to the bottom of Nooney lot is getting dug. So we need to put the pipe in the ground and have a plant.
All right,
Oh,
I think primary and secondary, but for the
Chargers.
fast chargers. It's important. Yeah.
I mean, Brad might have a different thought, but I thought if we could, it's not the best spot, but if we face it Main Street, all of the infrastructure could be in the green space islands. I just think if it's on that back wall, it's gonna be a nightmare working above and below the wall.
What do you think?
You know what that big thing is? It's the AC/DC converter. Is their direct charge, is DC goes directly into the vehicles. With the slow chargers, it's AC going into the vehicles.
I know we've gotten criticism for the slow chargers, but,
Yeah.
well, we were supposed to do all level 3, but
So there are just simple
And
ones.
they're stupid expensive. Because of the-
because of the low footprint of them, they're gonna have their place. I guess.
Like at hotels, it's perfect because people stay overnight.
So anything we do moving forward would be more.
I think you gotta have a mix, just because you lose so much real estate with level 3.
Okay.
I mean, you lose like every 5th parking spot.
How many feet
Where you lose
on
on
secondary before you lose voltage?
200, but it's so expensive to run the secondaries is the problem.
I mean, but basically,
Bigger conduit, bigger wire.
I don't know if there's any choice. You know, 'cause
You're running it.
eventually, we got to set up for the future.
I just gonna say, you're gonna run a conduit that will allow you to put whatever you need in there in the future.
I know it sounds great, but we got a shit ton of conduit that never gets used when you just throw it in the ground thinking.
I know, but.
Well, yeah,
That's
I'm
better than
so
digging
much
roads
cheaper than
up.
digging up the road.
yeah, I'm with Peter. If we can just, I know we don't have that conduit. We have conduit that we don't use, but if we.
Jim Morris said they're gonna, in 20 years, be all electric.
I just think we need to find a plan for it, where it's gonna.
2035, all electric except for their big trucks and their performance.
So we got to prepare.
Okay, that's a battle for another day.
How about design?
Mindy,
He came up with the islands up against Main Street.
All right. But now, we just got to cover them with that.
Mhm.
And part of that property, that the island you're talking about, is owned by the village. And the rest is owned by the, was the land swap when the Crown Plaza sign was put in? That was the land given to the village. On the south side of that piece of land you're talking about.
Okay.
So it's, we need some of that property still.
and one last thing before we go to you, Mindy, checking with Brad, if any of you have wondered why they didn't dig up the outlet to Mirror Lake, which goes underneath the, on the campus where the speed skating overlays, that's the one section of that pipe that's in really good shape.
From Main Street to over on the ramp at the school, going up the back, that's all concrete box culvert, so that's the only piece that's in good shape.
Just so people
That's
know
one
what
thing
they
they
get ahead.
did before the Olympics, that was,
That's
held up
good
well.
job.
Okay,
But if that water line gets designed, we should do that section
across the street,
Shed
yeah.
too.
Plastic, because it's where they dug for that foundation, they had all they could do to keep up with the water. Part of it is,
Leaking out.
that's groundwater, because that's the outshed of the lake, but it's also that pipe is shot underneath the buildings all the way down through.
Okay, so at least that should be replaced.
Yeah, I explained to Art where we want to go with,
Maybe we should get an easement through the parking lot.
yes, right next to the building, between the parking lot and the building, we can get up to the back.
ready to begin.
So the wall, that wall, sorry, it only did the math. You said it was about, you're thinking about $120,000 for the wall, the stone wall for the parking lot.
Are we back in the green wall?
No, 100, it's 150, and it's gonna be probably another 50 if we add those three
So
spots.
200 total installed, if it goes all the way.
I can't imagine that wind wall holding anything up though.
But
Yeah, because it's only 66.
I don't see any reason, why. It's not the whole thing.
Right.
$6,600.
Okay, moving on to
Sorry.
the budget.
That's what I do too.
All right, I'm not gonna go through the budget line by line. I sent everybody a copy of it. Everything balanced, water sewer is balanced, electric is balanced. The only thing that we were off on was our general fund. And actually, after some tweaks, and I have the tentative roll, I do not have the final roll from the county yet, and I will not have it probably until the day before we have to actually vote on this. Because there were so many modifications because people had a lot of grievances. Based on the numbers that they gave me, I put it into the New York State's tax levy system. We didn't utilize the levy at all last year because we kept taxes flat. So that allowed us to increase the levy 3.36% this year. If we take the full levy, our tax valuation rate, so what is going to essentially affect our customers, is still negative. So the tax rate will go down 1.12% based upon it.
It's not real, so it's not what they actually pay.
No, but the rate itself will go down.
Like this game that people play with tax rate.
That's if we decide to do it. At this point in time, we're only using $46,000 of fund balance. Last year, we used $575,000 of fund balance to balance the budget. It's not to say that we can't increase it if we decide we don't want to raise the tax rate or the property tax cap again this year. That's up to the board to decide. I went with what was given to me. I know last year we didn't want to increase taxes because of COVID.
COVID fear.
Exactly. We did a lot better than assumed last year based upon what we thought COVID was going to do. So I will leave that to the board to put their best foot forward to decide. You'll see that there's a difference in the electric budget of $35,000. That's just the down payment for the bucket truck that's coming out of the reserve. So that's why revenues don't equal expenditures. It's coming from another source. I thank Brad for modifying his budget so well this year.
What you're saying is the majority of our cuts came out of the DPW budget.
Well, yes, but I didn't actually cut anything that he
Right.
put into the budget this year. He had a very well-balanced budget this year, and it just happened to work really, really well. I was very, very thankful for it. The only thing that the board, once you review all the numbers, I did go over everything with Art already, but once you review all the numbers, is the only thing that might change how much fund balance we utilize will be non-union raises. And what we decide to do in here, everybody is set at 2%. If you make any modifications to the 2% and you want to increase them more or whatever, that may make a modification. And what we decide to do with taxes. So if we decide to keep it level again this year, we'll have to utilize more fund balance in order to balance it out.
What is the governor's cap? What would the tax cap increase be for just this year without bringing in last year's?
2%.
It is 2, which it isn't always correct.
It has been throughout the
Used to
last
be
few years.
1.2,
Yeah.
you know, before you started.
Mhm.
So there's it was always 2%, but there's a formula for that.
Yes, and when I put in the numbers into the state's website, it calculates that formula for us, which is how we get that 3.36%. That's what the state will allow us to increase taxes by.
Without having to vote.
Correct.
Override, yeah. So
Mhm.
our three options are to do what we did last year and go 0%, go with a 2%, or pick up last year and go to 3.36%.
Correct.
Each one has its pluses and minuses. Each one,
Can you repeat that for me, Mark? I apologize.
well, last year
The
we
three
did,
options are. I know
last year we used a lot of fund balance.
We
We
used
had
it
no
to keep it
increase.
true flat.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, we also have the ability to stay in the governor's tax cap and be at 2%. Or we have a third option to go and recap some of last year and bring it up to 3.36%, still be within the governor's tax cap.
And I will tell you the difference between last year's levy and this year's levy is $129,000.
Okay.
So it's still way less than what we used in fund balance last year, if we decided to go 0.
And the implications, if you don't go to 2 or 3.36, is that next year, if things are really with inflation going expensive, you're not going to have that ability to have kept up the amount you did this year.
Yeah, there may be an option where they don't allow you, like this year we have 3.36, which is the higher than the 2% normal. They may not give us that option next year. Maybe a flat 2%, which may not be enough to cover
You need
the,
to roll it over.
yes.
So you're saying the difference between the 2% and then the true 2%-ish is $129,000?
Yes.
Okay.
Have you done the math by any chance on a 300, I always used to say $200,000 house, I have to get with the times, 300,
It's in like Lake on my work.
$400,000 house, what would this increase be for each? Well, why don't we do the 2% and the 3.6?
Well, to be honest with you, so the estimated tax rate per thousand last year was 5.5915. The estimated tax rate this year is 5.5289, so it's actually negative 0.0626.
For the 2%?
No, for the
For the-
3.326.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's going down, not up per
because
thousand.
of the assessed valuations going higher.
Correct.
And when do we have to make our decision by?
By the next board meeting.
Okay, so we got one Monday.
Yeah. About a week.
Lots of time.
About a week.
Anybody have any questions then? This is your chance to ask. What's the
I
good-
am going to review the budget with Jackie, who signed off.
Too gone.
Individually, I am more than open to go through the budget with anybody individually. If you have questions about it, if you don't understand what certain things are for, I have no problem sitting down. Peter, you normally make comments and come in and see me anyways. But I have no problem sitting down with anyone to go through any line item as why it was this last year and why it is this.
Mindy, can you explain to Mark and to all of us, I guess, how we spread the board costs and spread the accounting department's costs?
So
through department,
the
through
board,
funds?
yes, the board, the accounting department clerk, two of the girls in the billing department now, we're spread across all 4 funds. So the electric pays a quarter of our salary. The general fund pays a quarter of our salary. Water and sewer each pay a quarter of our salary. So when we look at salary, or when I sit down to do salary increases every year, I take their contracted values because I have to go by the union contracts. And then I take our salary and wages and split them 4 ways. And that gets tacked on to what the actual payout is. So.
And I thought water and sewer were way under the estimated income for this fiscal year.
They were, and I actually did decrease the income values. I didn't leave them the same. I'm hoping that's a good thing because I underestimated and we still managed to balance. Last year, obviously, we ran into some issues where the hotels weren't open, they weren't using their water, they weren't using their sewer. So our revenues were down from the prior year. By the looks of it, all events are a go and we're at full capacity again this year. So the hope will be that we will exceed the revenue that I budgeted for. I always budget low. That way, if we go high, we're good. And if we go low, we're not too low. Last year was just unexpected because, and there was nothing I could do about it because there just weren't people here.
We won't know until we do the audit, how it affects the fund balance of each of those.
Right. Well, and the other thing that had to be taken into consideration is a lot of the revenue that is currently sitting outstanding, we can't re-levy water right now. And there's a good chance that we won't be able to until the second quarter of next year. We cannot go after electric AR accounts at this time. We can start penalizing, but we've got 6 months after the end of the state of emergency before we can start doing shutoffs, which if the state of emergency goes through the end of the year, which I'm hoping it won't, but if it does, we're looking at June, end of June, July of next year before we can do shutoffs and expect these people to pay. We have sent out payment agreements. We've gotten 4 in. We have had some people sign up for budget billing, so at least they're making payments.
How many, what, just a few, it's getting
10,
started?
12,
Okay, it's a beginning.
not a whole lot, but it's gonna come to fruition when these people see how much money they owe and they're not gonna be able to pay it.
So if the state of emergency ends before the end of the year, we can shut off April 15th?
Yes. As long as it's 6 months.
Yeah.
It has to be 180 days by the end of the state of emergency and the day we shut off.
We can shut off anyway,
No,
So I said, we only generated like parking, how much, let's see, it looks like we had 100, we budgeted 150 for parking revenue and parking lots, but it was a total of
Okay.
almost 67.
so if you look at the budget numbers, how things got budgeted for parking revenue, there's 3 columns. There's parking lot revenue, there's taxable revenue, and then there's street revenue.
Mhm.
How the tickets got coded when they came into the system were incorrect. So the total revenues, I think we're actually above where we're supposed to be in revenues because the machines have picked up more.
Okay.
You mean they're working more often?
Yes, they're working. Than we had originally expected, but the line items are kind of off.
Okay.
So when you follow across, if you look at the block of 3, if you add the 3 together over here and you add the 3 together over here, you'll get the overall sum.
We're taking into account like, the sort of the push that we're doing for construction as far as the generating less, street side.
Yes.
Revenue and whatnot. Because that's one of the only sort of avenues preaching would require that where we can generate revenue for services that.
We are, but we are picking up revenue in parking permit because of the $1,000 permits.
For the.
Yes,
Multiple use.
so that's going to be a nice,
What's that?
we won't see a lot of it until May of next year. We'll see a big chunk of it hit this year because our renewal time is May.
Mhm.
So a lot of the revenue that is being budgeted for won't actually book into the system until next May. But as long as they renew them on an annual basis, we'll have a consistent flow of revenue that way.
Fantastic. I've heard very positive feedback with the differentiating for up to multiple use.
Oh, you can see the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't hang it on your mirror while you're driving.
Yeah,
It's a big
I've
one.
I've heard very positive.
It's big.
feedback.
Well, maybe why don't you book it at the end of the year?
Well, because the revenue won't actually come in until May. So I could book the receivable so you can see it on the system, but the actual revenue won't come in until May when the permits renew.
I mean, did they pay it this year in May?
Yeah, but it's going to be on this year's,
This
the
year's.
current budget. So
Okay, yeah,
next
yeah,
year's
yeah,
budget,
yeah, yeah.
it'll show up in
Our
May.
fiscal year's a little bit later.
Yeah. That's all I have besides salaries. And I don't know how you want to.
We'll be talking about those on Monday.
You've got any executive session?
Wait a
Yeah, we
minute.
can't do it for the workshop.
Can't do that, can't do that.
No.
Okay, that was it.
Okay, so obviously we've got until Monday to make a decision on the 3 options. Any other questions help you make your decision or?
No, I'm gonna set something up with me.
You mean 0% what you proposed or the 3.5%?
0, 2, or 3.36.
And again, these numbers are tentative because I don't have the final roll yet. So this could potentially come down a little bit.
When's
yeah.
Grievance Day again?
Grievance day went, I
Yeah, they
already,
already
it
did.
was
But-
May 15th, May 16th?
Yeah, we always, this is the always dance before we always have to do a special board meeting to.
Yes, but it happens till the board meeting's late enough in the month that I'm hoping we can just be done with it. I've already spoken with Hannah and Deb upstairs, Hannah from the county, and she is going to get them to me as soon as possible. So it looks like the final rolls are just about finished.
Okay.
They just had a couple of loose ends to tie up, so.
Maybe already spoke. I looked into the increase, decrease. Or no, of the assessed.
Oh, it increased. We
$32
went
million.
from 600, so our overall assessed valuation last year was 687,905,000 and change. This year was 719 million.
So
96,000.
from the 719, are we anticipating a slight decrease?
Yes. Yeah,
As long as they've got the powers to be here. I had an email about the tree out front that Tree in
We
front
don't
of the
own
town
that
hall.
tree.
Right, but
It's not our tree.
who's going to take that out? I'm just wondering if,
Kimball, I think your guys probably cut it down. It's
That's
not
what I was
very
just gonna
big. It's
say.
just a little maple
until
tree.
they decide how they're gonna replace it.
I didn't notice it was dead.
I didn't either until I hit.
Yeah, it's got dead leaves
So
on
I just
it.
stand up, look out my window. and take a
From
look, but-
what we were told by the front office, they put like 3 different trees in there and they always die. So,
But I think, you know, in good faith, just to get rid of the tree, why don't we just, if you can pull it out of there, and then we'll let the tree board decide what's going to go back in, wasn't that the consensus?
mhm.
But I'm sure it's going to fall down to us to pull that tree out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little tree. There's nothing to it.
Get on my next meeting.
Thank you.
It's you.
Thanks, Mark.
Bruce board meeting, thanks.
Oh,
I'll tell them about the website.
yeah, oh, yeah. It's,
We talked about it all the time.
That's
One
the
thing,
most-
since you're here,
Something you can pull that tree.
Art was gonna mention it
What?
to Lori, and I said I would mention it to you. The Main Street Business Association, can you let them
Lake
know?
Placid.
Or yeah, sorry, Lake Placid
Don't
Business
call it Main
Association.
Street.
That's what.
Sorry. Could you just let them know, my dad's run into a couple of situations where a few of the business owners have told people that parking is free because of construction.
Oh, yeah,
It just makes them aware that parking is still enforced and they still have to pay.
absolutely.
That would be great.
Yep,
Thank you.
sure.
You'll pass that on to Lori.
I have to send out the recap. That wasn't at the meeting, so. See you guys.
Okay.
Tell them to look at the papers on 1 Main.
Yeah.
The granite.
I think it looks great.
Well, you know, and that's another thing too, as we finish up in June, we finish up September 1, and as we finish up in the fall, we're actually going to start moving down Main Street with finished product. And it kind of gives you a little bit of hope. It's not like everything's going to be torn up for all 2 years, all the way through, right?
That's great. A lot of
If I verify everything with Bragg.
Give me the thumbs up.
If they go down the highway, then half of the street will be done next spring.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you know, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. The hardest parts are behind us. Not that there's.
Once the drainage is in, then it's just gonna be, it's gonna be looking towards the end.
Without jumping into all the detail, by the time things freeze up and they have to stop, what percentage of drainage do you hope to have?
We're hoping to have almost all of it.
All done, okay. And boy, wouldn't this be great to have a late freeze, you know, something pushing into December, you know, which is all
Yeah, I mean, they're
possible.
gonna start at High Peaks next week, and start down that side of the road, and drain one of the crews.
And that's going to go over the old Orvis store, correct? Is that the
Yes.
portion? Yeah. And then will this granite sidewalk go into that portion as well?
That's what they're
Before,
before the end of the year.
Yeah, yeah.
Not the shovel, but that one will be, by the end of the year, they're hoping to have granite down that side of the road.
great,
On the.
High
Peak
Peaks,
side.
Peak side.
down to the old Orvis store.
Oh, okay, because that's when they were talking the class of film for, they were kind of hoping that,
We haven't heard from them yet.
oh, okay. Whether it was going to turn out or not, hoping to have some sort of. It works, it works.
Any other questions? Guess it's down to us 3 to ask. Anything from department heads?
Noticing they're not running that jump around farm anymore, a little busy.
No, I'm in.
Oh, have you? They're in the evening?
Thank you, Mindy.
I've been walking the lane
I
yesterday.
have about 6 spots, 7 spots, I just rotate.
There you go. Oh, I'm like Randy, I just.
I get bored.
That's-
I get
Our
bored
police
easily.
Craig was staying in Livonia. I assume that's right at August 1st through the 4th.
I can look.
Okay.
How's your mom?
If I had the choice to go back to Paris Island for a week, I'd take it.
Oh,
Or you just, you don't sleep the whole entire week?
I don't know. I don't think they set her up for success.
so she broke her clavicle and
She
her ribs?
annihilated it, which is a whole shit show in itself.
Jason, you want to stop right
Did she fall?
Yeah, I mean.
This conference will now be recorded.